Hello, I'm Anshula Dikshit, Public Relation Executive at the award-winning Fashion Community Week in San Francisco. Our platform offers support and opportunities for emerging fashion designers and brands from around the globe. This year, we celebrated the 10th edition of our existence. This is Fashion Community Speak, where we interview global fashion industry experts who join us to share their advice and expertise with us. Today, our guest is Saloni Shrestha, founder of the women's ready-to-wear brand Agati. Saloni has trained with reputed fashion houses such as Oscar De La Renta, Diane Von Furstenberg, Zac Posen, and Naeem Khan. She's a native of the Himalayas who has lived and traveled across various continents, and that has also been her key source and influence for her collection. Her commitment to sustainability shaped the idea of Agati, a brand connecting communities, empowering women, and inspiring a sustainable lifestyle. Saloni has also been featured on Women's Wear Daily, Huff Post, San Francisco Chronicle, Voyage LA, EcoCult, Eluxe, Authority, and Brides. She has also had Jennifer Lopez as her customer at New York Fashion Week and our very own Fashion Community Week on our Spring-Summer show in 2018 and 2019, as well as our Sustainable Fashion Week show in 2017. Welcome to Fashion Community Speak, Saloni. It is wonderful to have you as our guest today.
Thank you so much, Anshula, to you and Fashion Community Week for having me, and hello to the viewers.
Oh, of course. So tell us a little bit about your journey from fabric to designs, and how has this impeccable roadmap worked for you for the brand that you have created, Agati?
Well, as long as I remember, fashion has been, a big part of my life, whether I was in corporate marketing or, a founder of a fashion brand. With Agati, it was, I think, unknowingly, it had begun the roadmap already when I joined Parsons to study design. That's where, when there were times of learning and immersing in textile and draping and sketching, there was also the other side of fashion that I was coming to learn about, the wastage we created, the toxicity that we released, human, as well as environmental exploitation. And yeah, after learning all of that, nothing was the same for me, and I had to be a solution than a problem. So when I moved to San Francisco with my husband, it was a great time, to start another brand. This is my second brand. So another brand where it was about conscious decisions and, where I felt fulfilled to doing the right thing, with something that I loved. So 3.5 years has been amazing. It's gone by too fast. A lot of learnings, every day. And we've worked with, in this short time, with many talented artisans, textile weavers, hand embroiderers. We've taken our customers on an artisanal tour as well, because the core mission is to connect the urban consumers to the artisans. Yeah. And JLO, that happened last year, and I screamed for many nights in my head, which was amazing. But being a part of your San Francisco Fashion Week and also New York Fashion Week were pretty big milestones. Right now we're working on building a marketplace for artisans. So yeah, just I think keeps getting better, but a lot of challenges, but I'm loving it.
Wonderful. And I'm glad that you are loving it. And also, I agree with you when you say that people have been just talking about the problems. No one actually gives the solution. And I'm glad that you're doing something which is giving a solution just out there to solve this problem in the fashion industry. And since we are talking about, the problems, and your brand is all about like working on the philosophy of zero waste collection, which is amazing. So would you just like to walk us through the process?
Absolutely. It starts right from, the stage of designs when I'm sketching, thinking about how, the collection itself is going to work along, the fabric waste, the cutouts, how are we going to incorporate embroidery. There is a lot of manual pattern making, draping, and it gives us and my team, a lot of patience actually it's needed to kind of build up this process. So I'm very glad that, they have come on board and they've understood why we shouldn't waste. And sometimes when we can't give the textile a second life, in the form of embroidery or being reused in other designs, we do send it to third parties where they kind of weave into these floor mats. But I'm sure, we do use dead stock as well, because sometimes the waste of the others can become, your own treasure. So packaging as well, we don't want to kind of keep bringing in new boxes and new tissue paper. So we recycle sometimes what we have already existing. I think zero waste philosophy definitely helps us to think better, smarter, and, just feel less guilty in this, fabulous design process.
Superb. And I'm so glad that you just brought this in, because I feel that what you said is so correct, that someone's trash is someone's treasure. And that is so true. And especially in this time where we see people like going for secondhand clothing, recycling, upcycling clothes. And that has been a part of fashion industry, but I think it somehow just didn't gain that momentum. But right now people are understanding the need of it. So what, according to you, which practices do you think will transform the sustainable industry outlook maybe in 2020?
I think 2020 is too short a time frame. We are already midway through and the pandemic, making it, feel like forever. I think reducing consumption is already becoming and will become the biggest trend, because buying less, buying well is so needed in our, shopping habits. And, as a brand, I'm selling, something, and I need to make, revenue, I need to make profits. So yes, we do need sales, but it's also important that, we educate our customers that buying less and well is going to be important. So overall, I see there is a very strong voice actually coming from the consumers about also making brands accountable, making, us all be more responsible and be better at what we do. So I think the biggest trend is, one is buying less, buying well. And the other is, consumers driving this change and holding, the wrongdoers accountable to be better.
Well, customer is the king, and one must go for conscious clothing. And since you were also talking about the artisans, which is quite interesting, so I would just like our viewers to know a little bit about it. So whenever you're talking about, let's say, artisans, it's very unfortunate, Saloni, that we see exploitation, for short-term profits, and that has been in the industry for quite some time. So how does your brand ensure that these artisans are getting fair wages, are getting that respect that they deserve?
Anshula, right from the beginning, not just for Agati, even for another brand that I launched previously in Singapore, it's always been in-person experience for me, going and meeting the artisans, seeing where they work. Is it safe? Are their employees in safe working conditions? Are they happy? And also meeting the farmers. Like, I've been to the weaving unit houses where in Gujarat, in Varanasi, where, all the families are sitting together and working, right? So I think it's very important that you are in person and not just managing these audits from your offices. That's an absolute responsibility I hold to myself. And also being, right now at the scale we are, it gives me the flexibility to travel and see them do the work and, see their working conditions. With the, sampling and the production unit we work, there is a constant conversation going on with them, how their team is getting paid, and making sure that sometimes we add bonus. During this coronavirus time, they couldn't be paid at their important festival time, and we managed to raise a little bit of funds and pass on some to their families to celebrate, because there is no job, there is no orders, so there's no income. So we try as much to manage it as as a part of an extended family with what we can. But also educating the customers, because unless the customers are willing to pay a certain price range, and knowing what the value is, that revenue can't be passed along to the artisans. So I think doing it in person, auditing, is very important.
That is so important. And I think it's extremely vital to just go and meet someone in person and see how working conditions are. And Saloni, I must compliment you. You're doing a great initiative. And I wish more brands are doing like this. And since we were talking about this exploitation, working over hours, I would also like to point out, about women. Now, according to your website, while I was going through your website, 75 million people work in the clothing industry, 80% of which are women who are aged between 18 to 24 years and are offered jobs, unfortunately, with low wages and unsafe working conditions. I would just like, you to please tell us that how do you think this fact of the industry can change, in your opinion?
I think both brands and customers have to drive this change. The fast fashion industry has, obviously built a culture of overconsumption, the cheapest prices, the, quickest moving trends. And at the end of the day, consumers are getting very cheap price, but someone else is bearing the cost at the other end of it, right? Because the factories want to continue getting the orders, and how do they keep giving the best price to their clients? It is because they cut down at the workers, the garment workers, the artisan side. So we have to, all of us drive. Either if we can't drive policy changes, then we have to be a part of that drive to support those. I mean, I think there has been very big changes in the activist movements, to bring about government regulations, to bring about policy changes, to bring about inclusion. For example, currently we have the Black Lives Matter movement at a great height, and how talking about inclusion of Black community in the same way we should also talk about inclusion of more women in the workforce. In a country like India, Nepal, I think training would really help, because a lot of women themselves are quite convinced that their role is at home. And I think amazing work are being done by cooperatives and nonprofits to encourage them to come out and be financially independent, so that they take the decisions in their hand as well. So, honestly, it is a big cycle. It is the companies, the bigger companies driving it, the smaller companies also revolutionizing within their small clusters, the consumers. I am both a consumer and, a brand. And hopefully, at the end of the day, the makers and the artisans, join us.
Yes, and just be aware of what is actually happening. Sometimes we cannot just be ignorant, And last but not the least, do you have any advice to share with the audience who are watching you and wants to know something about, how they can go about it if they are starting a brand?
I truly believe, and probably you'll hear, if you listen to my interviews, that clothes are, what we make at Agati is more than just beautiful clothes. And in general, clothes is beyond a necessity to cover your body, right? It is about, your emotions, your values, what you stand for, how do you vote with your dollar. And I think it's so important that when you choose to buy something, buy it well, and be curious, find out, ask questions. I think that's what is holding and driving the consumer to now, make brands do the right thing about who made it, where is it made, how is it made. And I get questions and I feel challenged when I get these questions, but it makes us better. For example, using viscose at some point, I was questioned, I thought about it, understood it, and now we don't use viscose for, reasons that we shouldn't. So I think please, be curious, find out more, and, maybe even join, be a member, or, follow some of these organizations. Our Bay Area Remake organization is doing great work in bringing the information to you all, the transparency. So follow some of these organizations, Fashion Revolution, Remake. These are, two important ones. A lot of activists there to, follow Instagram and get updated. I think learning. I'm constantly learning. I hope you all do too, because buying less, buying well, and being conscious consumer is just the way to a better future.
Yes, and that's a wonderful advice. And I'll remember that, buy less and have a conscious decision while you're shopping. Ask yourself what you're
I
wearing. Who
would
need those clothes?
I'm so sorry. Can I also add, also
Yes.
please be a part of the handmade movement. There is so much soul in handmade, and it is not just, what our mom used to do in like 50, 60, 70 years ago. Now handmade also has moved along with time. So please, explore handmade.
Yes, we will definitely for sure. And Saloni, it was wonderful, like really wonderful having you in our interview series. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights, your story, your journey. I would also like to thank our audience for tuning in and watching the show. If you like to learn more about Agati and is interested in utilizing the platform, simply visit agati.com, agaati.com. Tune in every Wednesday at noon on our Fashion Community Week IDTV to watch live interview with fashion industry experts. All interviews are also available on our platforms every Wednesday and Thursday at 12 noon on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday with another interview series. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.